Okay, welcome to a new video of implementation of queue using arrays. Right, we will see the implementation of queue line by line. So the first two lines are our header files, right? So we define an array of size 3 here. So we define the size basically, which is 3, right? Now I say int queue of size. Queue is the name of our array. So the name of our array is queue, correct, and its size is 3, which we have defined here. So the maximum size of an array is 3. Initially queue has front equal to -1 and rear equal to -1. So what do I mean by front equal to -1 and rear equal to -1? This means that the front and rear are not pointing to any indices of the queue. They are not pointing to any indices of the queue, which means that front is pointing somewhere here and rear also is pointing somewhere here. They are not pointing to any indices of the queue, correct? So I hope you have understood till here. Now we all know that the program starts from the main function. So let us quickly move to the main function here. Here I have two variables, choice and value. Now I say while 1, this is a loop, right? While 1 represents true. So while true, I have given some options here: enqueue, dequeue, display, check if empty, check if full, exit. So we ask the user to enter a choice. Suppose the user has entered 1. So I say switch 1. So the choice value is compared with the case, each and every case. Here 1 is equal to 1. Therefore, it enters into case 1, and I ask the user, prompt the user to enter a value, right? So now suppose we all know that printf is just used to print this statement. Scanf is used to take input from the user. Suppose I have taken 90 here, right? So value equal to 90. Enqueue, this is a function. Enqueue 90. Right, so the enqueue function is called. So I go to the enqueue function. The control goes to the enqueue function here, right here. The control goes to the enqueue function. Value is 90, right? So I'm saying if IsFull. Now again, IsFull again is a function. So let us go to the IsFull function right now. Here, IsFull. This function is called, and it returns what? Whether rear equal to size -1. So we know that rear equal to, right now rear's value is -1, and we need to check whether -1 is equal to size 3 minus 1, that is 2. Is -1 equal to 2? False. Therefore, when I say it's false, it returns 0. It returns 0. Where does it return? It returns to IsFull, right? So again I go back to IsFull. Here it returns 0, which means that if false. So when the condition is false, it skips if and goes to the else block. Here I check whether front equal to -1. So we know that front right now is -1. -1 is equal to -1. Left hand side is equal to right hand side. Therefore, it is true. True means 1, right? True means 1. So if it is true, what happens? Front equal to 0. So front is assigned as 0. Let us go here now. Now what happens here? I'll just delete this one. Front now becomes 0. Which means that it will point here. Rear is still pointing somewhere here. Yes, rear is still pointing somewhere here. So front is now 0 and rear is -1. I hope you have understood this. Now let us go again here. So we are here right now, right? Front equal to 0. It comes out of the if statement, and then I say rear plus, which means that rear equal to rear plus 1. So rear is -1. Therefore rear will become 0. So in the example, we'll change the example here. So now rear will become 0. What I'll do, I will write rear here. So rear becomes also 0, which means that rear is also pointing towards the 0th index. So front and rear both are pointing towards 0. So one thing I would like to clarify is that only when you point to a particular index you can insert an element or enqueue an element to that particular index. You cannot just insert an element and point the pointer to that particular index, correct? So here rare became 0, and now I say q of rare equal to value we know is 90. 90 will be assigned to q of 0. So what is q of 0, guys? Q of 0 is nothing but this one, so I am saying 90 here. I'm saying 90, saying 90. Clear? I hope you have understood this. And then we just print out saying that inserted 90. So that will be printed. So the output will be, I'll write the output down somewhere here. I'll say inserted 90 will be displayed. And now we finish off the enqueue function. We go back again to the place where enqueue was called. Enqueue was called from here. So the control returns to the next line here, break. It breaks out of the switch statement. So where is the ending of the switch statement? This is the ending of the switch statement. So we are now here, but we are still inside the while loop. Therefore it goes back again to check the while condition. While is always true. 1 means always true. Therefore here again it comes into the while loop. Now again we have 6 options. Enter the choice. Again I enter 1. Choice is 1 and case 1 matches this 1. Therefore I prompt the user to enter a value here, right? So here suppose the user has entered 120, right? Now therefore I say enqueue 120, the enqueue function is called and 120 is passed. So we directly go to the enqueue function. The control goes to the enqueue function here. The value of the value will come 120 here. Now again we call the IsFull function. Again here the IsFull function is called here. Now return rare equal to size minus 1. So what is rare right now? We know that rare is 0. We will check whether 0 equal to size minus 1, 3 minus 1, that is 2. Is 0 equal to 2? No, 0 is not equal to 2. Therefore it will return false, which means that it will return 0. Where will it return? It will return back to the IsFull function. So it will return 0 here. Matlab if false. So it will not go into the if statement, it will go again to the else statement. What is there inside the L? What is there inside the else statement? If front equal to minus 1. But right now front is 0 here. Front is 0. Right? Front is 0. Therefore here front is 0. So is 0 equal to minus 1? No. Therefore it will not go into the if statement. It will directly go here and say rear plus plus. So here right now what is rear plus plus, guys? Rear plus plus is nothing but rear is equal to rear plus 1. Rear is equal to rear plus 1, right? So rear was 0 plus 1 will become 1. Rear will become 1, right? Now as rear becomes 1, I will just delete this, right? And I'll say rear equal to 1, front is pointing to 0, now rear is pointing towards 1, and after it points towards 1, I will say here q of rear equal to value. What is the value that we have passed? 120, correct? So now I'll say here q of rear, q of 1 equal to 120. So 120 will be inserted inside q of rear, and I'll just print inserted 120, and then I'll come out of this enqueue function, right? Then I go back again here and say break. I have the break statement. It will go out of the switch statement. We are still inside the while loop. So again the while loop is called here, and I give the user 6 options. I enter again choice 1. Now 1 matches 1. Therefore again we say enter value to insert, right? Now I insert, suppose I insert 5 here. I say enqueue 5, the enqueue function will again be called. Let me call the enqueue function again here. Once I call the enqueue function, no, I'll just delete this. Okay, the value is now 5 if full. The if is full, the IsFull function is again called here. Let me check the IsFull function now. Now here, what is rare? Rare is right now is 1 equal to size. Size is 3. 3 minus 1, 2. Is 1 equal to 2? No, it is false. Therefore, it will return 0. It will return 0. So here it will return 0, which means that false. If false, it will not enter here. It will directly go to the else statement here. Now I'll say here, if front equal to minus 1. Front equal to minus 1. Obviously, front is now 0, right? 0 equal to minus 1 is false, right? Therefore, it will go out of this if, and then it will go to the rare. And I'm saying here rare equal to rare plus 1. Rare equal to rare plus 1. So, rare now is 1, right? Rare now is 1. Therefore, this will become 2. So, the rare now will become 2, which means that I will change this, right? So I will change it to 2 here, and it will point towards 2. And now after pointing, I will say q of rare, that is 2, equal to what is the value that we have passed? 5, right? So q of rare equal to 5. So I will just delete this, and this is nothing but 5, right? And here, so 5 will be stored in q of 2. So let me store 5 here. Yeah, so I'll store 5 in q of 2, and here the previous value, I think previous value was 120, right? So I did not change it. Now I'm changing it. Previous value was 120. Now we will say inserted, this value will become 5. So I will print inserted 5. Correct, and it will come out of the enqueue statement, and then it will go to the break statement here, break statement, and break out of the switch statement. And now we are inside the while loop. Again we call the we go back to check the condition in the while, right? We go back to check the condition in the while. So let me just pause here, and just we will see this right now. Now here the queue is actually full. The queue is actually full. So what we will do, we will call the enqueue function here. So that to call the enqueue function, we need to just give the input as 1. So again we just try to give the input as 1 here. So suppose here the choice is 1. So switch 1, case 1, we try to enter an element. Suppose I want to enter, I want to insert 200. Yes, I'm saying enqueue again here, 200. Enqueue function will be called here. Enqueue function will be called, right? Here this becomes 200 if is full. Now the IsFull function is called. Let me see what is happening in the IsFull function. So now I go to the IsFull function, I just delete this one. So now if rare, what is rare, guys? Rare is 2 equal to size minus 1, 3 minus 1, that is 2. Now this is true, right? So it will return 1. Here IsFull is 1. So what happens? Because if true, then it will enter into the if statement. It will print q is full, cannot insert the value, that is 200. So it will print out q is full, cannot insert 200. So this is nothing but an overflow condition. This condition is called overflow condition. We will not allow the user to enter any more input because the queue is full, right? I hope you have understood this. Now again we go back to the break statement, right? Break statement, here it breaks out of the switch statement. You are still in the while loop. The while loop is we again check the condition in the while loop. While 1 is always true, right? So therefore we give these options to the user. Now suppose I have entered the choice as 2. Now here switch 2, what will it do? It will match 1 to 2. This is not equal. Therefore it will go to case 2. Now 2 is equal to 2, right? Therefore, the dequeue function is called dequeue. So directly we will call the dequeue function. So where is the dequeue function? Here it is. So now I am saying if is empty, we will check whether it is empty or not. So one point is that if the queue is empty, suppose the queue is empty, right? We cannot delete any more elements from the queue, right? So we need to check that condition whether the queue is empty or not. As long as there are elements in the queue, we can delete, but once the queue is empty, we have no option or no way to delete those elements. That is why we need to check whether the queue is empty or not. So IsEmpty condition would be checked. IsEmpty function is called here, right? So this is our IsEmpty function. So we'll return front equal to -1 equal to -1 and rear equal to -1. So what is front now? We know that front is what? 0 and rear is 2, right? So front 0 equal to -1 is false and 2 equal to -1 is false. Therefore it will return actually false, 0, right? It will return 0. So here it will return 0. Therefore it will not enter into the if statement. It will directly go to the else block and it will say deleted queue of front. What is front, guys? Queue of 0. Queue of 0. So what is queue of 0? We know that queue of 0 is 90. So it will print deleted. It will print deleted 90. Now you might be having a doubt ki we have not deleted, so how are we printing that we have deleted the element? So the point is once the element is deleted or once an element is garbage collected, we cannot display that element. Therefore before deleting only we display that element and then we delete that particular element. That is the reason we are displaying what we are about to delete and then we do it, right? So right now it is not deleted, but before only we are displaying that we are deleting 90. Now we check one more condition. We say if front equal to rear, 0 equal to 2, false, right? Therefore we will not enter into the if statement. We will go directly here into else. Now what is it saying? It is saying front plus plus, which means that front equal to front plus 1. Front is 0, 0 plus 1 equal to 1. So front become 1. Front becomes now 1, right? Front become 1. So now I will change this. I will change front to 1. No, front will now be pointing to 1, which means that the pointer has moved from 0 to 1, which means that 0 is now garbage collected. And this is how we dequeue an element. This is how we dequeue an element. So now after front points to 1, we return back to the main function here. We return back to the main function. In the main function, now the break statement executes. It breaks out of the switch statement, but we are still inside the while loop. Therefore, the while loop is called again, right? The while loop is called again, and then if I select 2 again, so here if I select choice as 2, then case 2 will be called. Case 2 will be again, and again we call dequeue function. So we go back to the dequeue function again here, right? We go back to the dequeue function again here. I'll just erase this thing, and then IsEmpty function is called, right? So in the dequeue function, the first function that is there in the if statement is the IsEmpty function, right? So inside the dequeue function, I want to check whether the queue is empty or not. Therefore, if IsEmpty, the IsEmpty function is called, and I say return front equal to -1. So what is front right now? Right now front is 1 and rear is 2. 1 is equal to -1 is false, that is 0. 2 is equal to -1 is false, that is 0. Therefore it returns 0 and 0 is nothing but 0. It returns false. So it returns false. So here this is nothing but false. If false, therefore it will go directly to else. I will just print deleted. What is deleted? Queue of front, right? Queue of front is deleted. Queue of 1, front value is 1, therefore queue of 1 is deleted, right? I will say I will say deleted. What is the value here? 120. 120. Correct? Correct. So as I've already told you, we print the deleted element before it gets deleted. Why? Because once it is deleted, we cannot access that particular element. Now I will check whether front equal to rear. Front is now 2 and rear is, front is now 1 and rear is 2, right? So therefore 1 is equal to 2 is false. Therefore it goes out of the if statement and it comes to the else statement. Now we have front plus plus. We have front plus plus. Now front was 1, right? Front was 1. As we can see here, front is 1 right now. Front plus plus will make front to 2, right? So front equal to front plus 1. So 1 plus 1 equal to 2. Therefore here the front pointer will now point towards 2, correct? So here the front pointer will not now point towards 2. Now here both front and rear both are pointing towards 2, and then once it points towards 2, 120 is garbage collected, which means that 120 is dequeued. 120 is dequeued, and then after this is the last line of the dequeue. Therefore we return back to the main function, and again suppose I have entered a choice called 2 again. I go to case 2, I call the dequeue function again. I call the dequeue function. Let us go again to the dequeue function, right? Let us go again to the dequeue function, and now I check whether the queue is empty or not. How do I check, guys? Again I call the IsEmpty function, right? So IsEmpty function is called here. Now we need to see what is front and what is rear. Here we can clearly see that front is 2 and rear is 2, and 2 equal to minus 1 is false. 2 equal to minus 1 is false. Therefore false and false is nothing but false. It returns false. It returns false. Here it returns false, and now it doesn't go into the if statement, it goes into the else statement, and I print deleted, and I print here deleted q of 2. So what is q of 2? Q of 2 is nothing but 5, right? Q of 2 nothing but 5. Therefore I just print deleted 5 before 5 is deleted. 5 is not yet deleted, but I just print before it is deleted. Now we check whether front equal to rear, right? So front is 2 and rear also is 2. So front equal to rear is correct, right? It is 2. Therefore it will enter into the if statement, and now I will check whether front equal to rear equal to 1. So here this condition applies only when there is a single element left in the queue. So how do we delete a single element? The best thing is that to delete a single element, if we just point front and rear to minus 1, we know that the queue is empty. Our first condition, right? So whenever front equal to rear, we just say that front equal to rear equal to minus 1, which means that the pointer here will move away from 2 and it will go to minus 1. Therefore let us do that actually, right? So I will just delete this one, right? And here I will say minus 1 minus 1. So front and rear were pointing to 2. When I say minus 1 and 2 and 5 is the only element. Therefore if I say front equal to minus 1 and rear equal to minus 1, then front and rear both point towards minus 1, and then this is garbage collected. This is garbage collected. 5 is garbage collected. Therefore the point is here that if there is a single element in the queue, right? So whenever there is a single element, front and rear will be equal. So when front and rear are equal, then just say front is equal to rear equal to minus 1, and then that element will be, that leftover single element will be deleted or dequeued, and then you have an empty queue. Empty queue. I hope you are understanding, right? So again, after this happens, front equal to rear equal to 1, right? We finish execution of the dequeue function. We go back again to the main function here. We go back again to the main function, and now suppose if you want to check whether it is empty or not, right? So what is the case here? If you want to check whether empty or not, case 4. Suppose if I enter the choice as 4, then again I call the IsEmpty function. IsEmpty function. So IsEmpty function we already know, right? We already know the IsEmpty function. Return front equal to -1 and rear equal to -1. So right now front is -1 and rear is -1. -1 equal to -1, true. -1 equal to -1 is true, right? So 1 for true and 0 for false, right? So now I have got true, therefore 1, true, therefore 1, right? True and true is actually true, therefore it returns true. It returns true, correct? So here in the main function, here it returns true, which means that it returns 1, and we go into the if statement, we say Q is empty. We say Q is empty, right? Now suppose right now our queue is empty, but suppose the queue is full. For example, I will just erase this one and we will draw a full queue of 3 elements, right? Full queue of 3 elements. So I'll just say like this: 0, 1, 2, right? So 3 elements, and I will just give some elements. I will say again same, I'll say here maybe 90, same elements, 120 and 5. Okay, we again assume that we have enqueued 90, 120 and 5. So how do I display 90, 120 and 5? So once I have these elements, we already know that once you have these kind of elements, we can say front equal to 0 and rear equal to 2. We have already done this when we were giving the examples for enqueuing elements, right? So front equal to 0 and rear equal to 2. So in the main function, if I have, right, if I have selected choice 3, which means that here choice is 3, right? Choice is 3. Therefore, it will match case 1 with 3, case 2 with 3, case 3 with 3. So when case 3 is equal to 3, then display function will be called. So what is the display function here, right? We are just trying to display whatever elements are there inside a queue, right? So here, as we can see, the display function is here. So now here we check whether it is empty or not, right? We know that front equal to 0 and rear equal to 2, right? So again we go back to the IsEmpty function, and now here I'll just delete this one, right? Now here right now front is 0 and rear is 2, right? Front is 0 and rear is 2. So right, front is 0 and rear is 2. So 0 equal to -1, false, right? 2 equal to -1, false. Therefore 0 and 0 is nothing but 0. It returns false, right? It returns false. Where? It returns false to the display condition here, right? So here inside the display condition, it returns false to IsEmpty. Therefore if IsEmpty, false. If false, it goes to the else condition. And now I print the Q elements, right? Q elements. So in the Q elements, int I equal to front, where front equal to 0 and rear equal to 2, right? So here I becomes 0, 0 less than 2 is true. Therefore it goes into the if statement. It prints out Q of 0. Q of 0 is nothing but 90, right? Q of 0 is nothing but 90, as we can clearly see here. Q of 0 is nothing but 90, right? So it prints out 90, right? It prints out 90, and then after executing this statement, I plus plus happens. I becomes 1, right? So now again 1 is compared with 2. 1 is less than 2, true. Therefore it comes inside, prints Q of 1. Q of 1 is 120, and then we increment I becomes now 2. Now 2 is equal to 2 is true. Therefore it comes inside, prints out Q of 2. That's nothing but 5. I increments again. I becomes 3. 3 is 3 less than or equal to 2, false. Therefore it comes out of the for loop completely. Comes out of the for loop, and 90, 120 and 5 are displayed, right? So if we go to the main function, we have seen enqueue function, we have seen DQ, we have seen display right now, we have seen if it is empty, we have seen if the queue is full. Now what is this? Exit. Now see, this is a while loop which is continuously running. Why? Because it is always true. Suppose if you want to exit this while loop, you just need to go to this exit function. So basically here, if you enter the choice as 6, if you enter the choice as 6, then it goes to case 6. It goes to case 6, and here there is nothing but exit 0, which means that it exits out of the while loop. It exits out of the while loop, and then after the while loop there is return 0 and then the end, right? And then it comes out of the main function, and then a program is complete. Therefore we have seen everything. We have seen is full, we have seen IsEmpty, we have seen display, DQ, Enqueue, as well as exit. We have seen all the choices. We have seen all the 6 choices here. I hope you have understood this video. If you have any doubt, I would like you to please comment in the comment section. Thank you for watching.